Hey guys, tonight we aren't just cracking open a dusty old history book. Tonight, you're going to step right out of your cozy spot and walk barefoot through ancient jungles. Feel the thick, humid air cling to your skin and gaze up at a sky that held power you can barely imagine from your modern, light-polluted world. You'll hear the buzz of insects that could probably carry you away, the distant call of creatures you've only seen in zoos, and maybe, just maybe, the whisper of secrets carried on the wind through towering stone cities. Let's be real for a second. If you actually time-traveled back there, you probably wouldn't survive the first week, let alone figure out how they charted the cosmos. Malaria, jaguars, questionable water. Yeah, your Netflix subscription seems a lot safer now, doesn't it? So before you get too comfortable imagining yourself wrestling jungle cats, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. No pressure, just appreciation. Let me know where you're listening from tonight by dropping your location and local time in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Leave the worries of your day behind. The only thing that matters right now is the rustling of leaves, the distant echo of a civilization steeped in mystery, and the silent, predictable dance of the sun and moon across a canvas of endless stars. You are standing on the edge of a vast green sea. Not water, but jungle. It stretches out before you, an undulating carpet of emerald and jade, broken only by the occasional impossibly tall ceiba tree, its branches reaching like fingers towards the heavens. The air is thick and heavy, alive with the hum of unseen life, insects, birds, things that watch from the shadows. The scent is damp earth, decaying leaves, and the sweet, sometimes cloying, perfume of unseen flowers. It's a world utterly alien to your own, a world ruled by the rhythms of nature, the cycles of growth and decay, and the silent, powerful movements of the celestial bodies above. This is Mesoamerica, centuries ago, long before pavement, before streetlights, before the gentle, persistent glow of your phone screen was the last thing you saw at night. Here, the night sky wasn't just a pretty backdrop. It was a living, breathing entity, a clock, a calendar, a divine theater where gods played out their cosmic dramas. And you, in this time, are one of the people who lived and breathed this reality, the Maya. You feel the cool earth beneath your bare feet. Maybe you're near a small, thatch-roofed dwelling, or perhaps you're walking a causeway leading towards the heart of a city, a place of towering stone pyramids that scrape against the sky. Look up at those pyramids. They aren't just impressive piles of rocks, though they certainly are that. They are aligned with the movements of the sun, the moon, the stars. They are observatories, temples, tombs, and tangible proof of a civilization deeply, profoundly connected to the sky. Your life, every aspect of it, is governed by cycles. The cycle of the sun, bringing the day and the heat. The cycle of the moon, waxing and waning, influencing the tides and the planting. The cycle of the seasons, the blessed rains arriving after the dry heat, bringing life back to the thirsty earth. And the cycle of corn. Corn, ishim, as you call it. It's not just food, it is life itself. You believe you were created from it. Your entire existence is tied to its planting, its growth, its harvest. Without corn, there is no life, no civilization, no you. And these cycles, these rhythms, are written in the sky. The sun's path tells you when to plant. The moon's phases tell you when to perform certain rituals. The position of certain stars tells you when the rains are coming. The sky isn't just observed, it is read. It is a book of prophecy, a guide for daily life, and a constant reminder of the powerful forces that shape your world. You're a part of a culture that possessed an almost obsessive fascination with time. Not just today and tomorrow, but vast, sweeping eons. You have complex calendar systems, like the Tzolk'in, a sacred 260-day cycle, and the Hab, a civil 365-day year, that intermeshed like cosmic gears. A mainstream historical fact for you right there. Their calendar systems were incredibly sophisticated, more accurate than many European calendars of the time. You carved these dates into stone, tracking events that happened thousands of years ago and predicting events far into the future. Your priests and scribes, the keepers of knowledge, spend their lives observing, calculating, recording. Imagine the silence of the night in this world. No cars, no planes, no distant city hum. Just the sounds of the jungle and the vast, overwhelming silence of the cosmos above. The stars aren't pinpricks. They are blazing diamonds scattered across black velvet. The Milky Way is a brilliant river of light, a pathway for the gods. In this profound darkness, with this incredible clarity, the movements of the celestial bodies are impossible to ignore. You see patterns, repetitions, predictable paths. And sometimes the predictable path is broken. The sun, the source of all light and warmth, the embodiment of the powerful deity, Kinich Ahau, begins to vanish. A dark bite appears on its edge, growing larger and larger, until only a sliver remains, or perhaps terrifyingly, it is completely consumed, leaving only a ghostly corona around a black void. The world plunges into twilight, or even darkness in the middle of the day. Animals become confused. People are filled with dread. This is an eclipse, a solar eclipse. To you, this isn't just a natural phenomenon. This is a moment of cosmic crisis. The sun god is being attacked, perhaps by a celestial serpent or a demon. The balance of the cosmos is threatened. What do? You pray, you fast, you make offerings. You may even draw blood to appease the angry or struggling deities. It is a time of fear and uncertainty. But here's the fascinating part, and where the real story begins. While the common people are filled with terror, your priests, your astronomers, they are not surprised. They know it is coming. They have predicted it. How? How could a civilization without telescopes, without modern computational tools, predict such precise celestial events? It's a question that still sparks intense debate among scholars. See, I told you we'd get to a scholarly debate. Was it pure, painstaking observation over centuries? Was it an intuitive understanding of complex cycles? Or was there something else at play? A way of thinking about the cosmos we've lost? Historians still argue whether their primary motivation was religious appeasement or purely scientific understanding, or most likely an inseparable blend of both. Consider this quirky tidbit. Some researchers believe the Mayans might have used reflections in still pools of water or even polished obsidian mirrors to safely observe the sun without damaging their eyes, though direct archaeological evidence for widespread systematic use of this specific technique for solar observation is still somewhat limited and debated. It's a fringe idea, but it paints a picture of ingenuity born from necessity. So you have this society, utterly dependent on the cycles of nature, centered around the cultivation of corn, and possessing an almost spiritual connection to the sky. They build magnificent cities, develop complex writing, and master intricate mathematics. And somehow they figure out the terrifying, awe-inspiring secret of when the sun will disappear from the sky. It wasn't magic, not in the way you might think. It was a combination of relentless observation, sophisticated mathematics, and a deep cultural imperative to understand the rhythms of the universe that governed their very survival. They watched the sky not just for beauty, but for survival. They calculated not just for abstract knowledge, but for the practical, terrifying need to know when the cosmic balance might tip. And at the heart of it all, supporting the priests who watched the stars, the scribes who recorded the numbers, and the kings who commissioned the monuments, was the humble cornfield. The surplus food it provided freed people to specialize, to become astronomers and mathematicians, instead of just farmers. Corn wasn't just food, it was the fuel for their intellectual and spiritual endeavors, the very foundation upon which their ability. Eyes on the heavens, Mayan sky obsession. You stand in the bustling plaza, the tropical air thick with the scent of copal incense and something else, maybe damp earth after a recent shower, or the distant smell of wood smoke. Above you, the sky is a vast, impossibly blue canvas stretching from horizon to horizon. You look up and you see the sun, a blazing disk that feels both life-giving and utterly powerful. You understand, intuitively, why these people, the Maya, are so utterly captivated by it. For the Maya, the sky isn't just empty space or a pretty backdrop. Oh no, it's a living, breathing entity. It's a calendar, a clock, a divine stage where gods play out cosmic dramas. It's the source of rain that makes the corn grow, the path the sun god, Pinichahau, travels each day, and the dark road the moon goddess, Ixchel, navigates. Everything important happens up there, or is reflected down here. You notice the architecture around you. The pyramids aren't just big, pointy rocks. They are designed to align with celestial events. A doorway perfectly frames the setting sun on the equinox. A specific corner catches the light of Venus at its most brilliant phase. It's like the entire city is a giant, sophisticated astronomical instrument, constantly tracking the heavens. You start to feel a little silly about relying on a phone app to tell you when the sun sets. These guys built mountains to do it. Their obsession isn't just academic, though. It's deeply practical and spiritual. The movements of the sun, moon, and stars dictate everything from when to plant and harvest their precious maize, the very foundation of their diet and culture, remember, to the timing of religious ceremonies and even warfare. Yes, warfare. The cycles of Venus, in particular, were considered important omens for planning battles. Imagine consulting a star chart before deciding to invade your neighbor. It adds a whole new level to strategic planning, doesn't it? Okay, the omens are good. Venus is in the right spot. Let's go poke the guys in Tikal. You see priests and astronomers, often the same people, because in this world, science and religion are completely intertwined. Poring over complex charts and calculations, they're tracking cycles that span not just years, but decades, centuries. They have developed incredibly sophisticated calendars, far more accurate than anything in Europe at the time. You've heard of the famous Mayan calendar that supposedly predicted the end of the world, right? Spoiler alert, it didn't. It just finished a cycle, like your car's odometer rolling over. The Maya were way too into cycles for things to just end. This complex system, the long count, along with the calendar round, is a testament to their deep understanding of time and celestial mechanics. This isn't some fringe group making stuff up. This is a mainstream historical fact. Their calendrical system, based on astronomical observation, was incredibly advanced. They are tracking the sun, of course, noting its path, its solstices, its equinoxes. They're tracking the moon, understanding its phases and its complex orbital cycles. They're tracking the planets, especially Venus, which they saw as a powerful and sometimes malevolent celestial body, sometimes associated with their feathered serpent deity Kukulkan. They even paid attention to the stars, though perhaps not in the same way as some cultures. Their focus was more on the predictable cycles of the major players, Sun, Moon, Venus. But it's not just about tracking, it's about understanding the patterns. They see that the sun rises and sets every day. The moon waxes and wanes. They see that the planets follow predictable paths. They see cycles within cycles. This cosmic order is reflected in their own lives and society. When the sky is in balance, their world is in balance. When something unusual happens, like, say, the sun disappearing in the middle of the day, it's a major disruption to that order. You might wonder how they recorded all this. They used glyphs, their intricate writing system, carving records onto stone stelae, painting them on pottery, and writing in books made of bark paper called codices. These codices contain astronomical tables, detailing the cycles of Venus, the moon, and yes, even predicting eclipses. Sadly, most of these books were later destroyed by Spanish conquerors who saw them as pagan works. Imagine burning libraries filled with centuries of astronomical data and historical records. It's like deleting the entire internet because you don't like cats. You see scribes carefully illustrating these codices, their hands steady as they paint complex glyphs representing numbers, dates, and celestial events. You see priests consulting these books, using them to plan important rituals or advise rulers. The knowledge is concentrated in the hands of an elite class of astronomer priests. Now, here's a slightly quirkier tidbit you might stumble upon in your observations. While their main focus was on the big, predictable cycles, there's evidence they paid attention to less obvious phenomena. Some researchers have suggested they tracked the Pleiades star cluster, perhaps linking its heliacal rising when it first becomes visible in the east before sunrise to specific agricultural timings or ceremonies. It's not as central as the sun or Venus, but it shows the depth of their observational skills, noticing subtle celestial cues among the obvious ones. You feel the weight of this knowledge. It's not just academic, it's existential. Their entire way of life, their connection to the divine, their very survival, dependent on successful agriculture, is tied to their understanding of the sky. They aren't just stargazing, they are reading the intentions of the gods, predicting the future, ensuring the continuity of the cosmos and their place within it. You understand the depth of their commitment. This isn't just a hobby, it's a fundamental pillar of their civilization. They built monumental structures, developed advanced mathematics, including the concept of zero, which is pretty neat, and created a sophisticated writing system, all in part to better understand and interact with the cosmos. And among all these predictable cycles, the daily sunrise, the monthly moon phases, the longer Venus cycles, there was one event that was both terrifying and, to their refined minds, predictable: the sudden, dramatic disappearance of the sun, an eclipse. Understanding this phenomenon, predicting it, was perhaps the ultimate test of their celestial knowledge and their ability to maintain cosmic order. You can almost feel the tension, the mix of fear and anticipation that would have preceded such an event. They aren't just watching for fun. They were watching to survive, to appease, to understand the most powerful forces they knew. You're standing there, under that vast, ancient sky, feeling the weight of cosmic anticipation. You've seen the patterns, the slow march of the stars, the predictable dance of the moon. But seeing isn't enough for prediction, is it? Not for something as precise as an eclipse. For that, you need tools, really, really good tools. And the Mayans had one that was, frankly, mind-blowing for its time. Their secret weapon wasn't some magical crystal ball or whispers from the wind god. It was something far more practical, far more elegant. It was their math. Imagine yourself walking through a Mayan city, the air thick with the scent of copal incense and the earthy smell of the jungle after a rain. You see intricate carvings on stele and temple walls, not just pictures, but glyphs. And among these glyphs, you start noticing something else. Symbols representing numbers. Simple dots and bars primarily. 1 dot is 1, 2 dots are 2, 3 dots 3, 4 dots 4. Easy enough, right? Then a bar appears. A bar is 5, so 2 bars, that's 10. A bar and 3 dots, 8. It's like counting on your fingers and then grouping them in fives, maybe using your toes too, because you're dealing with a base 20 system. Yes, base 20. While most of the world fiddled around with base 10, counting on their fingers, bless their hearts, the Mayans went big. They used a vigesimal system, counting in units of 20. Think of it like this. Instead of the places in a number being ones, tens, hundreds, 1 to the 0, 10 to the 1, 10 to the 2, their places were ones, 20s, 400s, and so on, upwards. So a single dot in the bottom position is 1. A single dot in the next position up is 20. A single dot in the third position is 400. A bar, 5, in the bottom position is 5. A bar in the 20s place is 5 times 20 equals 100. And if you had a bar in the 20s place and a dot in the 1s place, that would be 100 plus 1, 101. See how the shell symbol, the 0, becomes crucial? If you wanted to write exactly 100, you'd put a bar in the 20s place, representing 5 times 20. Cycles intertwined. Corn, sky, and time. You stand there, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, the same sun that beat down on the Mayan fields centuries ago. You imagine the rustle of corn stalks, tall and green, swaying in the breeze. It wasn't just food, it was the rhythm of their lives, the very pulse of their existence. And that pulse wasn't just tied to the earth beneath their feet, but to the vast, star-dusted canvas above their heads. Think about it. Your life today is dictated by clocks and calendars, right? You wake up at a certain time, go to work or school, have meetings, appointments, maybe even schedule your Netflix binges. You live by a pretty rigid, human-made schedule. The Maya, though, their schedule was written in the sky and grown in the soil. You feel the dry earth under your bare feet, imagining yourself in a Mayan village. The air smells of wood smoke and damp earth. The sun climbs higher, painting the sky in hues of gold and blue. You look around at the fields of maize, stretching out towards the horizon. This corn isn't just growing, it's living the cycle. It emerges from the earth after the rains begin, reaches for the sky, matures under the hot sun, and is finally harvested as the dry season approaches. This cycle, planting to harvest, was the fundamental beat of their year. But this beat wasn't random. It was deeply, intrinsically linked to the movements of the sky. You watch the sun as it traces its path across the day. You notice how the point where it rises and sets shifts throughout the year. You see the moon wax and wane, completing its cycle. You see the stars appear at night, different constellations visible at different times of the year, like cosmic signposts marking the passage of seasons. For the Maya, these weren't separate phenomena. The cycle of the corn, the cycle of the sun, the cycle of the moon, the cycle of the stars, they were all parts of one grand interconnected cosmic dance. And they were obsessed with understanding this dance, with tracking its steps, predicting its movements. It was like they saw the universe as a giant, incredibly complex clockwork mechanism, and they wanted to know exactly how every gear turned, every pendulum swung. You sit down by a large stone worn smooth by time and weather. You trace the intricate carvings on its surface. Glyphs, symbols, numbers. This is where the math comes in. To track these cycles, they needed a system. And boy, did they build a system. Forget your simple Gregorian calendar. The Maya were working on a whole other level of chronological complexity. They had multiple calendars running simultaneously, like different clocks ticking in harmony, or sometimes maybe causing a bit of calendrical confusion, like trying to sync 3 different time zones on your phone. You've probably heard of the Tzolk'in, the 260-day sacred calendar, and the Ha'ab, the 365-day solar calendar. These two interlocked like gears, creating a larger cycle of 52 Ha'ab years, known as the calendar round. This 52-year cycle was incredibly important. It was roughly the span of a human lifetime, a significant period for prophecy and planning. But they didn't stop there. Oh no! They also had the long count, a linear count of days stretching back millions of years into the mythical past. This was their way of placing events within a vast cosmic timeline, giving them a sense of deep history and predicting distant future events. It's a bit like having a digital clock, the long count, running alongside a perpetual desk calendar, the calendar round. You need both to know the specific day and where you are in the grand scheme of things. You lean back, looking up at the invisible daytime sky. You imagine the priests and scribes, the astronomers and mathematicians meticulously observing, recording, calculating. They weren't just doing abstract math. They were doing math with a purpose: to understand the divine order of the cosmos and ensure the continuation of life, which, remember, was powered by corn. The planting season had to align with the rainy season, and the rainy season was tied to the sun's position. The success of the harvest, the very survival of the community, depended on getting these cycles right. So, tracking the sun's path, predicting the solstices and equinoxes, understanding the patterns of the moon and stars, this wasn't just academic curiosity. It was literally a matter of life and death, or at least of dinner. You picture a scribe sitting in a cool stone room, perhaps illuminated by a flickering torch. They are painting glyphs onto bark paper or carving them into stone. They are recording the date in multiple calendar systems. They are noting the position of Venus or the phase of the moon or the exact moment of sunrise on a specific day. This data wasn't just stored away. It was analyzed, crunched, used to build predictive models. This sophisticated record-keeping is a mainstream historical fact about the Maya. Their advanced calendrical system and astronomical observations, meticulously recorded in codices, books, and on monuments, are well documented and studied. They tracked not just the sun and moon, but also planets like Venus, which held significant cultural and astronomical importance. Now, imagine the connection they made between the sky and the soil. Some scholars suggest that the specific arrangement of certain constellations in the night sky might have been seen as celestial maps for agricultural practices. For example, the appearance of certain star groups might signal the time for clearing fields, while others indicated when to plant. It's a quirky tidbit, maybe a bit fringe depending on the interpretation, but it highlights how deeply interwoven their understanding of the cosmos was with their earthly survival. The sky wasn't just pretty lights, it was an instruction manual for farming. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the sounds around you, maybe a distant bird call, the gentle rustle of leaves. You try to feel the passage of time, not just by the clock in your head, but by the subtle shifts in light and temperature, by the feel of the air. This is how the Maya felt it deeply and physically connected to the natural world. Their mathematical prowess, which we touched on briefly, was essential here. They developed a sophisticated number system, including the concept of zero, long before it was widely used in Europe. This allowed them to perform complex calculations needed for astronomy and calendrics. They could track cycles that spanned thousands of years, predicting astronomical events with remarkable accuracy. Historians still argue whether the primary motivation for this intense focus on astronomy and calendrics was practical, like agriculture, or purely ceremonial and religious. Were they tracking eclipses mainly to predict planting seasons, or because they believed these events were divine omens requiring specific rituals? It was likely a combination of both, but the exact weight given to each aspect is a subject of ongoing debate among experts. You picture a scribe sitting in a cool stone room, perhaps illuminated by a flickering torch. They are looking up at the night sky, not just with wonder, but with intense focus. They weren't just stargazing, they were reading a cosmic clock, a divine timetable. They saw patterns, cycles, repetitions, and they realized that if you understood these patterns, if you could track them accurately enough, you could predict the future, at least the predictable parts of it, like when the sun might be swallowed whole by a celestial serpent. Don't worry, that's a metaphorical serpent. No gore here, just cosmic drama. This constant observation and calculation allowed them to notice anomalies, deviations from the expected patterns. And the most dramatic deviation of all, when the predictable, life-giving sun, the very source of energy for their beloved corn, suddenly, inexplicably, began to disappear in the middle of the day. This wasn't just an interesting astronomical event, it was terrifying, world-altering. But because they had been meticulously tracking the cycles of the sun and the moon for generations, they had the foundation, the data, the mathematical tools to begin to understand why it was happening and eventually to predict when it would happen. Their agricultural cycles, dictated by the sun and rain, demanded a deep understanding of the solar year. Their ceremonial cycles, tied to the sacred Tzolk'in, required tracking shorter, more complex rhythms. And their need to place themselves within a vast historical and cosmic narrative led to the long count. All of these calendaric and astronomical systems were intertwined, feeding into each other, creating a framework for understanding time itself. You imagine them correlating the timing of solar eclipses with Get a simple explanation of how the sun momentarily disappears from view. Okay, so why all this fuss about numbers, about observing the sky with such relentless focus? What is this event they needed to predict? This moment that struck such primal fear and awe into the hearts of people across the ancient world, including the diligent Mayan astronomers. Imagine this. You're standing outside, maybe in a bustling Mayan plaza, or perhaps just in your own backyard on a perfectly normal sunny day. The sky is a familiar, cheerful blue. The sun is a bright, constant presence, warming your skin, casting sharp, clear shadows. Life is proceeding as it always does, under the benevolent gaze of Kinich Ahau, the sun god. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, something starts to change. The light begins to dim, but not like it does at sunset. It's different. The world doesn't turn golden or orange. Instead, the light seems to get thinner, desaturated. Like someone is slowly turning down the brightness knob on the entire world, or maybe applying a weird faded filter to reality. It feels off, a little unsettling. You might glance up, maybe squinting, wondering if a cloud is passing. But the sky above seems clear enough, yet the light continues to fade. You might notice the temperature starting to drop, just a little at first, then more noticeably. A cool breeze might pick up, the kind that makes you wish you'd grabbed that extra layer before coming outside. It's a strange chill, not the kind that comes with the wind, but more like the warmth has simply been withdrawn from the air itself, like the world is holding its breath. Look around you. the shadows are getting sharp, unnaturally so. If you look under a leafy tree, you might see hundreds of tiny crescent shapes dappling the ground, each gap between the leaves acting like a pinhole camera, projecting the image of the partially eclipsed sun. It's bizarrely beautiful and deeply weird. And the animals get confused. Birds might stop singing and settle down as if for the night. Roosters might crow, thinking dawn has come again. Your pet dog might look at you with wide, questioning eyes, sensing the strangeness but not understanding it. It's as if the natural rhythm of life, dictated for millennia by the sun's passage, is suddenly thrown into disarray. Fun fact, ancient texts from cultures around the world often mention animal distress during the eclipses, a quirky detail that adds to the eerie atmosphere. As the moments pass, the dimming accelerates. The sky darkens to a deep twilight, maybe even darker. The sun, if you were to look at it safely, which please never do without proper eye protection, would no longer be a blinding disk, but a crescent, a bite taken out of it, growing larger and larger. It's like watching your favorite show, and someone slowly, deliberately stands right in front of the TV screen, blocking the picture. Annoying, but on a cosmic scale. And then, the moment of totality. If you are in the path of a total solar eclipse, the sun disappears completely. In its place is a perfect inky black circle, the body of the moon, perfectly covering the sun's visible surface. But around this black disk, something else appears. A shimmering ethereal crown of light, like wispy white flames reaching out into space. This is the sun's corona, its outer atmosphere, normally invisible against the sun's brilliant face. It is breathtakingly beautiful, otherworldly, and profoundly unsettling. Stars and planets might become visible in the darkened daytime sky. The horizon might glow with the colors of a sunset, 360 degrees around you, because you are essentially seeing the light from areas outside the path of totality. And you just stand there, mouth perhaps slightly agape, feeling small and vulnerable and utterly mesmerized. It's a moment of profound connection to the cosmos, a stark reminder that we're just tiny beings on a rock hurtling through space, subject to the grand, predictable, if you know the math, movements of celestial bodies. Now imagine experiencing that without knowing why, without the comforting voice of science explaining that it's just the moon, our familiar, friendly moon, passing directly between the Earth and the sun for a few precious minutes. Imagine believing, as many ancient cultures did, that this was an omen, that a celestial dragon was eating the sun, or that the sun god was sick, dying, or angry. This is what the Mayans saw. This is the event that terrified and fascinated them in equal measure. They didn't have our modern scientific explanation, but they were brilliant observers. They saw the patterns. They saw that this wasn't random. The sun wasn't just disappearing, it was disappearing according to a schedule, a terrifying, important schedule. From a purely scientific standpoint, a solar eclipse is incredibly simple geometry. You have three objects, the sun, the moon, and the earth. They line up. The moon, being much closer to us than the sun, appears roughly the same size in the sky. When its orbit carries it precisely between the earth and the sun, its shadow falls upon a small part of the earth's surface, and for anyone standing in that shadow, the sun is blocked. Simple, right? Well, yes and no. The basic idea is simple, but the prediction is incredibly complex. The Earth is orbiting the sun. The moon is orbiting the Earth. But these orbits aren't perfect circles. They're ellipses. The moon's orbit is tilted relative to the Earth's orbit around the sun. The Earth's orbit around the sun is also tilted relative to its own axis. The moon's orbit is also slowly changing shape and orientation over vast periods, and the Earth's rotation isn't perfectly uniform. All these little wobbles and tilts mean that predicting exactly when and exactly where the moon's shadow will fall on Earth requires a deep understanding of cyclical movements and a lot of precise calculation. This is where the Mayans excelled. They observed these cycles. They tracked the sun, the moon, and the visible planets with meticulous care, year after year, century after century. They weren't just watching for fun. They were gathering data. They were building a cosmic database in stone and perhaps on perishable materials like bark paper. Historians still argue whether the Mayans understood the physical mechanism of the eclipse, that the moon was causing it, or if they simply understood the pattern of when it would happen based on observing the relationship between the sun's apparent movement and the moon's phases. Did they conceptualize the moon as a physical object blocking the sun? Or was it more of a mystical alignment they learned to anticipate? The truth is probably somewhere in between, a blend of keen astronomical observation and a rich, complex cosmology. What is clear is that they saw the pattern and they sought to master it. Think about the sheer dedication. No telescopes, no computers, just their eyes, simple sighting tools, and an unwavering commitment to recording the movements of the heavens. They charted the moon's phases, its position in the sky, the sun's path throughout the year, and the occurrence of these terrifying, beautiful eclipses. They were looking for the underlying rhythm, the cosmic heartbeat that dictated when the light would fail and when it would return. And to unlock the secrets of this cosmic dance, to know when that eerie twilight would descend, when the temperature would drop, when the animals would freak out, and when that stunning corona would appear, they needed something powerful, something that could handle immense numbers and track intricate cycles. They needed their remarkable system of mathematics, recording the cosmos, Mayan observations. So you have the stage set, the sun, the moon, the terrifying yet fascinating dance of the eclipse, and the deep-seated need to understand and predict it for the sake of the cosmos itself. And you have the incredible mathematical system, ready to crunch numbers that would make your modern calculator sweat slightly. But math isn't magic. It needs data. It needs observations. And this is where the Mayans truly shone, like a well-polished star cataloged over millennia. You find yourself standing, perhaps, on a stone platform high above the jungle canopy. The air is cooler here, thin and clear. Below, the sounds of the city are muted. Distant calls, the rustle of leaves, the gentle murmur of life carrying on. But up here, the silence is profound, broken only by the whisper of the wind, and you close your eyes for a moment, letting the hum of the ancient world fade just slightly. You were there, watching the skies, feeling the weight of those meticulous observations. Now you open your eyes again, and you're standing in a quiet, climate-controlled room. The air is still, carrying the faint, almost imperceptible scent of aged paper and something else, something earthy, perhaps from the materials used millennia ago. Before you, resting gently on a padded surface under soft, diffused light, is not just a book in the modern sense, but a treasure. A folded screen, a long strip of material made from the inner bark of fig trees, coated with a fine layer of gesso and painted with incredible precision. This is it. This is one of the keys, the Dresden Codex. Imagine holding something this old, something created by hands that lived in a world so different from yours, yet wrestled with the same fundamental questions about the cosmos. It's like holding a direct line, a fragile thread connecting you to minds that looked up at the same sun, moon, and stars you see tonight. Except, they didn't have Netflix to distract them, which, honestly, might explain some of their dedication. The Codex is a marvel of engineering and artistry. It's like a super compact ancient laptop if your laptop was made of tree bark and folded up like an accordion. It's about 3.5 meters long when unfolded, but it's designed to be read panel by panel, a sequence of pages painted on both sides. The material, called ambiance, is surprisingly durable but incredibly vulnerable to time, humidity, and, let's be honest, human carelessness throughout history. It's one of only 4 known, relatively intact Mayan codices to have survived. Just 4. Think about all the knowledge, all the history, all the astrological charts and predictions that were lost. It's a bit like losing 99% of the internet, except the remaining 1% is written in a language you only partially understand. A real bummer. As you lean closer, you can see the intricate details. The pages are filled with glyphs, beautiful, complex symbols that represent sounds, words, and ideas. They're arranged in columns, often accompanied by numbers written in the Mayan bar and dot system. Remember that elegant system? The dots for ones, the bars for fives, the shell-like glyph for 0? It all comes together here, a fusion of art, language, and mathematics. This isn't a storybook, though there are images of deities and rituals scattered throughout. This is a scientific and divinatory text. It's a working document, a reference guide for priests and astronomers. And within its folded pages lies the heart of the Mayan understanding of celestial cycles, particularly the movements of Venus and, crucially for our story, the prediction of eclipses. Turn the page, carefully, in your mind's eye. You see tables, rows and columns of numbers and glyphs. They look daunting, like a spreadsheet designed by aliens who really loved astronomy and also hated simple formatting. But these tables are gold. They're the accumulated wisdom of centuries of observation distilled into a format that allowed the Maya to track the complex rhythms of the sky. One of the most famous sections is the Venus table. It meticulously tracks the 584-day cycle of Venus, its appearance as the morning star, its disappearance, its reappearance as the evening star. Why Venus? Well, besides being incredibly bright and noticeable, its cycle is mathematically related to the cycles of the sun and moon. The Maya saw connections everywhere, patterns within patterns, like a cosmic fractal. Understanding Venus was a step towards understanding everything else. But the real star of our show, the section that directly relates to those moments of terrifying darkness, is the eclipse table. You find it, a specific sequence of pages dedicated to the prediction of both solar and lunar eclipses. It's a long table, spanning many years, listing dates and calculations related to potential eclipse events. Look closely at the numbers. You see references to the interval of 177 or 178 days, and sometimes 148 days. These aren't random figures. They correspond to the time between eclipse seasons, periods when the sun and moon are aligned with the Earth's orbital plane, the ecliptic, making eclipses possible. Eclipses don't just happen any old time the moon passes in front of the sun. The moon needs to be near the ecliptic plane at the same time. These intervals capture that crucial alignment. The table isn't a simple list saying, eclipse on Tuesday. That would be too easy, wouldn't it? Instead, it provides a baseline date and then lists multiples of these eclipse season intervals, allowing priests to track potential eclipse periods far into the future. It's like having a sophisticated alarm clock for the cosmos, albeit one you had to set yourself using complex arithmetic. And you couldn't just snooze it. Deciphering these tables has been a monumental task for modern scholars. It's like trying to read a highly technical manual written in a dead language using a number system that works differently from yours on fragile paper that's thousands of years old. Historians still argue whether certain glyphs represent specific dates or periods, or if they are more divinatory, indicating the potential of an eclipse and the associated rituals needed to appease the gods. It's not always a clean, purely scientific equation. The spiritual and the astronomical were deeply intertwined for the Maya. Imagine the scene, a Mayan astronomer priest, perhaps late at night, tracing the numbers on this very codex by the flickering light of a fire. They are calculating, consulting the tables, projecting forward in time. They aren't just predicting a celestial event, they are predicting a moment of profound spiritual significance, a time when the cosmic balance might be disrupted. They needed to know exactly when this might happen to prepare the community, to perform the necessary rituals, perhaps involving offerings of precious corn or other items, to ensure the sun's return. The accuracy of these tables is staggering, especially considering the tools they had. No telescopes, no atomic clocks, just careful, persistent observation and that powerful mathematical system. They weren't always perfect, mind you. The tables predict potential eclipse dates, not every single visible eclipse. You see, an eclipse might be possible mathematically, but it might only be visible from, say, modern-day Peru, not from the Mayan heartland. The Maya seem to have focused on predicting the possibility of an eclipse during these seasons, perhaps using local observation to confirm if it would be visible to them. There's a quirky tidbit about the Codex's journey to Europe. It somehow ended up in the hands of the Royal Library in Dresden, Germany, around the 18th century. Nobody's entirely sure how it got there. Was it a gift, loot, or did someone just find it in a dusty attic after it was brought over centuries earlier? It's a bit of a historical mystery, like trying to figure out who ate the last slice of pizza when everyone denies it. It just appeared. And thank goodness it did. This fragile document survived the Spanish conquest, the burning of Mayan books by zealous missionaries who saw them as pagan texts, and even the bombing of Dresden in World War II, though it suffered some water damage then too. It's a survivor, this codex, a testament to the resilience of knowledge. So, you stand here looking at this ancient artifact. It represents the culmination of those long nights of observation, the mastery of their numbering system, and the deep desire to understand and predict the rhythms of the universe. The Dresden Codex is proof that the Maya weren't just building pyramids and playing ball games. They were conducting serious astronomical research, developing sophisticated predictive models, and recording it all in a format that, against all odds, has allowed us to peer into the workings of their brilliant minds thousands of years later. It's enough to make you want to go home and hug your calendar. It's enough to make you want to go home and hug your calendar. But your journey through time isn't over yet. You're still standing here, metaphorically speaking, in the presence of this incredible artifact, the Dresden Codex, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down. You can almost smell the faint, earthy scent of the paper, hear the whispers of the scribes who carefully painted these glyphs. Now, let's talk about the real magic trick, predicting the darkness, because that's what the Maya did. They weren't just tracking the sky, they were forecasting its moods, and they did it using the language they knew best: numbers, cycles, and observation. You lean closer to the page, tracing the lines of the eclipse table with your mind's eye. It looks like a complex grid, a celestial spreadsheet, if you will, filled with columns of numbers and glyphs. It's not immediately obvious how this translates to predicting when the sun will vanish, but the genius is in the underlying structure. Remember those cycles we talked about? The 260-day Solkin, the 365-day Hob, the majestic 584-day journey of Venus? The Maya understood that the sky wasn't random, it moved in predictable, repeating patterns. And solar eclipses, terrifying as they may seem, are also part of that cosmic dance. The key to their prediction method lies in understanding how these cycles intersect and, crucially, how they relate to the cycles of the moon and the sun that cause eclipses. Solar eclipses happen when the moon passes directly between the sun and Earth, casting a shadow. This can only occur. You feel the air begin to shift, subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. The vibrant, humid warmth of the jungle afternoon starts to lose its edge, replaced by a strange, cooling hush. The light changes too, becoming thin and silvery, like an old photograph leaching its color. You're standing in a Mayan plaza, centuries ago, and you know, with a certainty that chills you more than the changing air, that something enormous is about to happen in the sky. But unlike the vast majority of people throughout history, the Mayans here, they aren't panicking, not in the way you might expect anyway. There's tension, yes, a palpable energy rippling through the crowd gathered below the temple steps, but it's mixed with something else. Anticipation, a knowledge of what is coming, because they knew, the astronomers, the priests, the rulers, the people who understood the language of the long count and the intricacies of the Dresden Codex, they had seen the signs, crunched the numbers or the corn kernels as we imagined, and predicted this moment. This knowledge wasn't just academic, it was power. Immense power. Imagine being the only one in your village who knows exactly when the sun is going to disappear and then reappear. You're not just a smart person, you're practically a sorcerer, a mediator with the gods themselves. The Mayan elite, the Ahau, rulers, and the Achkin, priests, were already considered semi-divine, their lineage tracing back to the cosmos. Their ability to predict eclipses cemented this status. They weren't just reacting to the whims of the sky deities, they were aligned with them, privy to their schedule. You watch as figures in elaborate headdresses, adorned with jade and feathers, ascend the temple stairs. These are the ones who hold the secrets of time and the heavens. They move with a practiced grace, their faces serene, perhaps a little tense, but showing none of the raw terror that an unpredicted eclipse would surely inspire. They had prepared for this. Rituals were planned, offerings made before the event, not in a desperate last-minute plea as the sky went dark. This predictive power allowed the elite to frame the eclipse not as a random, terrifying catastrophe, but as a predictable, albeit dramatic, phase in the cosmic cycle, a cycle they understood and, through their knowledge, could influence or at least navigate. They could tell the people, the sun god Kinich Ahau is undertaking a perilous journey. He is being attacked, perhaps by the forces of the underworld, but fear not, for we know this journey, and we know he will return. Think about it. For a society deeply connected to the agricultural cycle, where the sun's reliable presence was the very foundation of life, remember the corn, the idea of it being extinguished, even temporarily, was existentially terrifying. It's like your Wi-Fi going out, but forever. And the only people who know when it's coming back are the guys in the fancy hats. You'd probably listen to them, right? The rituals performed during an eclipse were likely elaborate and multifaceted. While we don't have a complete script, wouldn't that be handy? Scene 1, Eclipse. Priest says, "Oh dear, there it goes." Glyphs and archaeological evidence hint at various activities. There would have been fasting, prayer, perhaps bloodletting, a common practice to nourish the gods and maintain cosmic balance. Imagine the drums beating, the chanting rising, the collective breath held as the last sliver of sun vanishes. The elite would be performing specific ceremonies on the temple summit, their actions visible to the masses below, reinforcing their role as intermediaries. Historians still debate whether the primary purpose of these predictions and the associated rituals was genuine religious propitiation, an honest attempt to help the sun god survive his ordeal, or primarily a tool for political control, using fear and predicted salvation to maintain authority. It was likely a complex mix of both, as is often the case with power and belief systems. You see this throughout history, the intertwining of spiritual authority and temporal rule. It's like your boss also being the only person who knows the secret password to the coffee machine. You're probably going to be extra nice to them, right? There's a fascinating, though somewhat fringe tidbit about eclipse beliefs. Some researchers suggest the Mayans believed that during an eclipse, the boundaries between the earthly realm and the underworld became thinner. This wasn't necessarily a good thing. It could allow malevolent forces or spirits to cross over. Rituals might also have focused on reinforcing these boundaries, protecting the community from unseen dangers during this vulnerable time. Imagine the air crackling not just with cosmic energy, but with the perceived presence of other, less friendly entities. The ability to predict eclipses also likely influenced warfare and political strategy. Knowing when a significant celestial event would occur could be used to time battles, intimidate enemies. Imagine attacking during a predicted, terrifying eclipse, or legitimize a ruler's actions as being aligned with cosmic forces. A king who launches a campaign just as the sun is reborn after an eclipse might claim divine favor for his victory. You feel the temperature drop noticeably now. The strange light deepens, casts eerie shadows. The sounds of the jungle change. Diurnal animals fall silent, confused, perhaps thinking night has fallen prematurely. Nocturnal creatures might stir. The air feels heavy, expectant. It's a powerful, visceral experience, even when you know it's coming. For the Mayans, steeped in their complex cosmology, this was a moment of profound cosmic drama playing out before their eyes. The elite, armed with their tables from the Dresden Codex, were not just observers, they were participants, guides through the celestial crisis. Their knowledge transformed the terrifying unknown into a manageable, predictable event, albeit one requiring significant ritual effort. This mastery over cosmic time was a potent symbol of their connection to the divine and their right to rule. It solidified their position at the apex of Mayan society, making them indispensable navigators of both earthly and celestial cycles. You can almost hear the collective sigh of relief, perhaps even awe, as the first sliver of the sun reappears precisely when their leaders said it would. It's the ultimate "I told you so," but with way more incense and high-stakes theology. So the corn, the math, the cycles, it all led to this, not just abstract knowledge, but practical, societal impact. It shaped their rituals, reinforced their power structures, and helped them navigate the perceived dangers of a dynamic cosmos. They didn't just watch the sky, they lived in dialogue with it, guided by the precise, predictable movements they had so painstakingly charted. You settle deeper into your imaginary hammock. The jungle sounds a distant hum. The air feels thick, ancient. You've just grasped why the Mayans cared so much about these celestial dances. Power, survival, cosmic harmony. But now you lean back and ask the obvious question, the one that makes your modern brain itch. How? How did they do it without giant telescopes, without atomic clocks, without even, well, electricity? You picture yourself standing in a Mayan plaza at night. The sky above is a velvet dome, absolutely packed with stars. No light pollution here, just the Milky Way stretching across like a cosmic river. You can almost hear the soft rustle of palm leaves, the distant chirp of insects. This is their laboratory, their observatory. No fancy equipment, just the naked eye, incredible patience, and a mind sharp enough to see patterns in the chaos. Imagine you rely on your phone to tell you the time, the date, maybe even when the next meteor shower is, if you're feeling adventurous. The Mayans relied on their eyes, their brains, and generations of accumulated knowledge. It's like trying to build a modern skyscraper using only hand tools and blueprints drawn on bark paper. Utterly mind-boggling, right? They weren't just casually glancing up. They were meticulous. Imagine someone, perhaps a priest astronomer, or maybe just the designated sky nerd of the village, who knows, sitting on a platform night after night, year after year. They're noting the position of the sun at dawn and dusk, the phases of the moon, the movement of Venus, that incredibly bright morning star or evening star that behaves so predictably. They're tracking the solstices, the equinoxes, the precise moments when the sun aligns with a specific notch in a distant mountain or a doorway in a temple. It's low-tech, high-precision engineering applied to the heavens. Consider the famous Caracal building at Chichen Itza. You walk up its winding staircase, imagining the priests who climbed these very steps centuries ago. This structure, often called the observatory, isn't just a round tower, which is unusual in Mayan architecture. It has specific windows and alignments. Stand in one of these windows, and you might see Venus setting on specific dates, marking key points in its cycle. Look from another point, and you can mark the solstices and equinoxes. It's like a giant stone calendar built into the landscape. That's a mainstream historical fact you can hang your hat on. The Caracal's astronomical alignments are well documented. Now, how did they process all this data?